Good morning, students. Today we are going to read the chapter The Portrait of a Lady, which is being written by Khuswant Singh, and we are going to discuss Unit 3. But before we start Unit 3, let us discuss few points on Unit 2. Listen. In the previous class, I had told you that the grandmother and the writer, when he was an infant, when he was a child, were living together constantly, and the grandmother was helping him in almost all the work. Even she was taking 100% care of her grandson, and it is mentioned that she was waking him to take bath and preparing his slate. At the same time, she was also going along with him to the school, and when the writer was reading alphabet and morning prayer in the school which was being taught by the Pandit, in the meantime, what was the grandmother doing? The grandmother was reading the scriptures, means the grandmother was reading the holy book. And as while going to the school, they were throwing the stall chapatis that they had taken along with them. And while returning, the dogs were also giving them company. But it was up to the temple. Okay, after that much only, the dogs are giving them company. So, here, one thing is mentioned. The grandma was quite religious. That's why, almost all the time, she was reciting prayer. And the writer was listening her song, listening her prayer. But he was not having any intention to learn it, because he was listening because he loved her voice. That's the reason that why he was listening the prayer which was being recited by the grandmother. Okay, this was in the Unit 2. Now let us discuss about Unit 3. Life in the village. In warm-up it is written, life in the village is quite different from city life. 100% correct. Village life and city life. There is a great difference in between these two. And here the writer has also mentioned that family relationship also changes in city life. How? It is mentioned later. There is a turning point in relationship, and the relationship takes turns. Means the relationship takes a new name. Not a new name, means it changes drastically. Okay? Which is being mentioned by the writer. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, listen, in Unit 1 I had told you that the writer's parents had left him under the care of the grandmother while they had been to city to settle there. So when they were well settled in the city, they sent for us. And after the well settlement of the parents of the writer and his grandmother, they both went to the city. That was a turning point of our relationship, and here the relationship changed little bit. Turning point. It take a new turn. Although we sat in the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. Even when the grandson and the grandmother, they were sharing the same room, but still the grandmother was not going with her grandson to the school because it is the city school. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. And how the writer was going to the school? He was going to the school in a motor bus, and he was going to an English medium school. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. And what was the grandmother doing in the village? In the village, she was feeding the sparrow. In the village, she was feeding the dogs. But right now, in the city house, there were no dogs. That's why she started feeding the sparrows. Sparrows means birds. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other, and the writer also grew up. Okay, and the grandmother was at home. So when the years were rolling, they were seeing each other very less. Means there is few contact in between them. From time to time, for some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. Sometimes the grandmother was preparing the grandson to go to school, and sometime only she was asking him what are the lessons that are taught in the school. I would tell her English words and little things of Western sciences learning. And what was the grandson doing? The grandson was speaking that, this is taught, that is taught. He was speaking some science as well as Western science and learning he was speaking. The law of gravity, Archimedes principle, the world being round, etc. And what was he speaking? He was speaking that the earth is round, Archimedes principle, law of gravity, all these things are being told by the grandson to the grandmother. But the grandmother was not at all happy by listening all these things. Why? What is the reason? This made her unhappy. She was unhappy. She could not help me with my lessons because the grandmother was unable to help the writer with the lessons. Because in the village school, she was helping the grandson, and right now this is not possible. She did not believe in the things they taught me at the English school and was distressed. Distress means unhappy. And it is mentioned that the grandmother doesn't believe in the things taught at the English school and was distressed that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. Scriptures, as I have told in the previous class, mean holy book. And the grandmother was not happy because there was nothing about God in the subject, in the syllabus, in the lessons. There was nothing about God and about the holy books. And the grandmother was having the desire that her grandson should learn these things. One day, I announced that we were being given music lessons. And one day when the writer returned from school, he announced that they were going to get music lessons at school. Means music class. She was very disturbed. And right now, when the grandmother heard it, she was too much disturbed. To her, music had lewd association. Lewd means what? Vulgar. It means which is something which is bad. Because according to the grandmother, music is not having any good association. It is having some low association, some bad, vulgar association. It was the monopoly of the harlots. Harlots means what? Prostitutes. Okay, so here it is mentioned that she doesn't like music because according to her, music is having low association and it is the monopoly means it is completely belonging to the low class people, to the harlots and to the beggars, and not meant for gentle folk. And the gentle people, gentlemen, they don't learn music. This was the opinion of the grandmother. But even when she was thinking like this, she didn't speak anything. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. But the grandmother did not complain. She remained silent. It means here silent doesn't mean yes. Here silent means disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that, and then she rarely means hardly. She talked to the grandson after he was taking music classes. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own, and then the writer grew up. He became a young man. Now, he was not sharing the room with the grandmother. He was given a room of his own. The common link of friendship was snapped. Snapped means cut up. And right now, when the writer was given a room of his own, the very good relationship, the friendship in between the grandmother and the grandson was being cut up. My grandmother accepted her second son. Second son means what? To keep someone away from people or society. Means to allow someone. To keep someone alone. Okay? And here, my grandmother accepted her second son with resignation. Second son with resignation means what? Without speaking, without uttering a single word, she accepted it. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone, and she didn't leave her spinning wheel, the spinning wheel which is being meant to do the threads. And she was never ever leaving that one. She was not talking with anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayer. And what was she doing? All day, from sunrise to sunset, she was sitting near her spinning wheel and she was making threads and also reciting the prayers. Only in the afternoon, she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrow. But in the afternoon time, she was taking little bit relaxation. That was why? That was to feed the sparrows, to feed the birds. While she sat in the veranda, breaking the bread into little bits, small pieces, hundreds of little birds collected around her, creating a veritable bedlam of creepings. Veritable bedlam of creeping means what? A noise which is being created by the birds. So here, when she watched, means breaking the breadcrumbs into small pieces, a number of birds were sitting around her and they are creating too much noise. Some came in perch. Perch means sit. Here perch, past tense, sit. Perch means sit, to take rest. Some came in perch on her legs, others on her shoulders, and some birds are coming and sitting on her legs, and some are also sitting on her shoulders. Some even sit on her head, and some birds were also sitting on her head. But still, the grandma was not reacting. She smiled, but never shooed them away. Shooed away means drive away. Okay, and the grandma was smiling only, but she was never ever driving the birds away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her, and this 30 minutes, this half an hour was remaining the happiest time for the complete day. Okay, so here, what is the summary of this unit 3? Here in unit 3, it is mentioned the writers and the grandmothers shifting to the city. Okay, the writer and the grandmother, they shifted to the city after the well settlement of its parents. Then what did happen? Even when they were sharing the same room, but still the common friendship in between them was being cut up. Means they were no longer friends. The writer was not getting time because he was busy. He was busy means what? Busy in study, because a number of new things were being taught to him and he had to read for the school, for the home tasks, etc., etc. And it is also mentioned that the grandmother, she doesn't like the subjects that are taught to the writer in the school because there was nothing regarding the God and the scripture. And here, the writer was learning Western science and the world and Archimedes principle and a number of few dozen of other things that the grandmother doesn't like, because her primary motive was that there must be a subject on God and scripture which was not present in the school. That's why even when she was not complaining, but she was not speaking anything, she was remaining silent. One day the writer announced that he was going to take music lessons at school. But when the grandmother heard it, she was very unhappy. She was disturbed because according to her, music is not having good association. It is having the association of a whore, means prostitute, or the rustic people, or the third grade people, or the beggars. They are learning music. But still, she didn't speak anything. She didn't react. She was remaining silent only. But most of the time, what was she doing? She was spending her complete time with the spinning wheel, and she was also counting the beads of rosary, or she was reciting the prayer. Even when the complete day, she was doing the same thing. But in the afternoon, for 30 minutes, she was taking the break. And why? The reason was simple. She was feeding the sparrows. And it was the happiest 30 minutes for her in the complete day. Okay, understood? Thank you. Have a nice day.